Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. Naruto and Jiraiya were speechless as they listened to Nagato. All Jiraiya could think about was despair. He hadn't known such a thing happened to the three students, and realized that even if he went now, it was already too late. Other memories flashed through. Most were when he started taking the girl in as an apprentice, to when they went to get Tsunade. He felt how attached Naruto was to his future self, so much like a daughter would to a father. The last one, Naruto was 17, when she met her mother, Kushina. He watched as they interacted, before it started getting serious. Kushina told her what happened on the day of her birth, and how why the Nine Tails attacked the village. Jiraiya's face turned hard, and stayed that way until he was the only one left. Do you understand now? He turned to face the 13-year-old version of Naruto, her face calm and emotionless. I made you watch this to see a little of what happened in the future, and what's going to happen in a little under 2 years. I want to save Nagato and Konan. I want them to change their way of trying to grab peace, but I need your help in doing so. How? Naruto held the sealing paper they used, burning it to ashes with her chakra. Her eyes seemed to shine more azure as she looked at the blue flames, before shifting them to his. I want to go on a training trip with you. The white-haired man's eyes widened, before his eyebrows knit together. Training trip. She nodded. For 5 months, starting 1 month after the Junin exams ended. In that time, I wish for you to train me in the sealing arts, and to convince Nagato. I can't go on my own, nor can I just suddenly appear with a bunch of ninjas he doesn't know. You're the best person to go with. Would you do it? As long as we'd have enough time to go to the bathhouses, yes. Naruto's eyes squinted in suspicion. He never agreed so easily before. Are you sure? Jiraiya rolled his eyes, waving a hand dismissively at her. Positive. Besides, I'll take you on as an apprentice later in the future, wouldn't I? Easier to get it done with now, and besides, judging from what I said in your memories, having you around didn't sound too bad. It would also be good to grab Tsunade on the way. She couldn't help it. Naruto threw herself at him, wrapping her arms around his stomach tightly as she resisted the urge to cry. She missed her godfather so much. Jiraiya softened his gaze as he patted her head lightly. Naruto looked around feeling nostalgic as she listened to the waterfall, and rolled her eyes at the perverted sage who was discreetly watching a bunch of women playing in the pool. Oi, arrow I mean, Jiraiya-sensei. He looked back and nodded in satisfaction. He sighed, right, the toad summoning contract. Jiraiya flashed his hands to seals, bit his thumb, and slammed the ground. In a puff of smoke, Gamma appeared with the scroll, passing it to the sage. He unraveled it before leaving the long contract on the dry, rocky floor. I'm sure you know what to do. Yep. She bit and drew blood on her thumb, using it as ink. She wrote her name neatly, impressing the white-haired man. Why would you need me to train you in the sealing arts anyways? You seem good enough to be able to make your own like the one you used on me before. I haven't seen anything like that. She looked up at him from the scroll. I haven't mastered it though. That seal was done with the help of the furball, after all. I didn't make it myself. I'll need it later on in case something happened to him. Naruto's gaze turned sad at the idea. Jiraiya nodded in understanding of what she meant. They were still in public, so they had to be careful of their words. Alright, so you try summoning a toad, and we'll have some lunch later after a while of training, got it? She saluted. Yes, sir. The two could now be seen walking down the streets. Jiraiya looked down to the bubbly 12-year-old who was ignorant to the whispers around them. Jiraiya-sama's walking with Minato-sama's sister. And they seemed like they were training. Well, duh, they are ninja. Learn her name, idiot. It's Naruto-sama. Said girl was busy smiling, eyes crinkling upwards. Arrow Senin. Can we go eat some dango for dessert? More rushed whispers surrounded them. Jiraiya bopped her head. It's Jiraiya-sensei, brat. He sighed. Sure. You'll pay for your own though. A whole lot more excited whispers exploded. Did he just? Oh my gosh, is he taking her on as his student? Naruto groaned as she patted her wallet. Ah, man. She tugged on his sleeve, her pout returning to a grin. They're doing a sale anyways. Jiraiya twitched his eye as he watched the girl vacuumed up the dango off her fourth stick. You'll get fat if you eat like that. Are you even sure you have enough money? Naruto swallowed loudly. Yup. They're 30% off today. Something about the owner's birthday. She looked around. Akin. 3 more Mitarashi sticks please. The man behind the counter smiled as he waved a hand, comin' right up. Jiraiya snapped his fingers in front of her face, gaining the blonde's attention after the waiter left the plate on their table. I want to know one thing before we do everything else. She nodded as she brought the dessert up to her lips. Was Orochimaru found guilty of anything? Her hand stopped, before she placed the dango stick back down on the plate. She flicked her blue eyes around the room, and saw that there weren't many people sitting close enough to hear them. The customers were also too busy in on their conversations, so she looked back at the man, her blue eyes reflecting the light. He was caught doing many experiments on clan children. He managed to flee from Konoha, after the third failed to stop him. Naruto combed her hair with her fingers, running it down. A few years after Dad was named 4th Hokage, the Sandaime found out about his lab, and fought him. Naruto's hands shook as she gripped her blonde locks, her face twisted in anger. That snake wanted the Hokage title, seeing it as power, but after someone else took the role, he found that he had nothing to gain in Konoha anymore. He wanted to be the ultimate being, and he wanted to be immortal. He experimented, kidnapping Konoha shinobi and using them as guinea pigs. The third found out, and fought him, trying to stop Orochimaru. Jiraiya's eyes held his grief as he tried to ask, is it possible to? Naruto finished for him, save him. He nodded. He's a lost cause now, Jiraiya-sensei. I'm sure you've noticed. He stayed silent, looking at his reflection from his tea. He finally spoke again after a few minutes, his voice deep and low. I see. We'll have to do something about him later then, don't we? He smiled weakly, and Naruto decided to change the topic, much to his relief as they got up to pay for the food at the counter. The Junin exams nearly take a month, right? Jiraiya nodded. So 1 month, another one after that, and then adding 5 months. It would leave me with 10 months before my birthday. Jiraiya understood what she meant. We're on a tight schedule then, huh? Wish we could have had at least 2 full years. He sighed dramatically. There goes my research time. The girl huffed while they walked out of the store. You aren't even writing the books yet, but you still call peeping on women in baths research. Well, a surprised, familiar voice cut him off. Jiraiya-sensei. Naruto. The two turned to see Minato along with Rin, Obito and Kakashi, who all bowed their heads in respect. Naruto grinned as she waved a hand, Rin smiled and Obito waving back. The blonde looked at Kakashi. Yo. The silver-headed boy raised a brow. Hey. Naruto rolled her eyes. Geez, man. It's what you used to say to me before, but when I say it, all you say in response is a, hey. She flicked his forehead protector and withdrew her hand before he could slap it away in retort. So what were you guys doing? Obito drawled. Training, as usual. Your boyfriend missed you. Kakashi glared, as Rin giggled. Naruto whacked his arm. Seriously, Obito, it's getting old. We don't like each other like that. Kakashi was glad he had a mask on. He was sure he felt his lips form a frown. He furrowed his brows in confusion, ignoring the bickering of his 2 loud teammates and Rin trying to calm them down. For the last few weeks, he was acting strange. Hearing Naruto deny they had feelings for each other got him to react in displeasure. He really didn't like where this was going. It couldn't be true. He watched Naruto bring her hands up in frustration, feeling his lips quirk up in amusement before he caught himself. Could it? He shook his head. It had only been a month since he knew her. This girl was his future student, and he was technically going to be about 14 years older than her. Besides, he thought, She isn't my type. That got him confused again. What was his type? He looked at Rin, before shaking his head mentally. He thought of her as a sister, but were her personalities something close to it? He tried thinking of characteristics that he viewed a girlfriend should have. Calm, organized, great company, kind, caring, a strong kunoichi. Naruto was calm when she wanted to be, was fun to be around, kind and very caring, strong. He knit his eyebrows close. This wasn't going as it should. He thought of things that he saw in a wife. Good housework skills, great with children, supportive. He mentally punched himself in the head. He doesn't know her well enough to know if she doesn't have these points, although he reluctantly admits she probably does. What was he trying to prove with all of this thinking anyway? Kakashi. Obito clapped his hands in front of his face, frowning along with his other teammates. Naruto's eyes looked up at him in concern. Kakashi. Are you alright? He blinked before shaking his head. Yeah, I'm fine. He turned his head around to look for the two adults. Where's Minato-sensei and Jiraiya-sama? Rin raised a brow. They said they were going to the Hokage's office to talk with him. Didn't you hear them? Kakashi shook his head. No, I guess I was thinking too much. The three shared a brief glance before silently deciding to not push him about it. Naruto nodded. So, what do you guys wanna do? Obito blinked at her. I thought you'd jump for training. She scowled. I'm not obsessed with it. I think it's better to relax once in a while. We've been training for so long. I want to do something else with the team. Although it's also because I won't get to spend much time with you guys once the exams start. Rin pondered. Well, we don't have many options. We all just ate. Training's out. Really, what's there to do? Obito moaned. There's nothing. Kakashi sighed. Why don't we just go home? Naruto lightly punched his arm. That's boring, and I want team bonding. She suddenly grinned. We can have a race. Obito scratched his cheek. So much for relaxing. But that's the best we can come up with. Let's do it. So where's the goal? Naruto draped an arm on Rin's shoulder, her grin growing wider. The Hokage mountain, on top of the Nadime's head. He blinked before groaning. Really, Naruto? You're a slave driver. This is like Guy's challenge with Kakashi. They got into position as Naruto shouted out, 3, 2, 1. They all bent down, waiting for the last yell. Go. Rin, Naruto and Kakashi sprinted, as the blonde grinned maniacally. Now where's Obito? Gah. Thud. Rin looked back, only to see the boy on the floor, in an embarrassing heap. She looked longingly at the mountain, before sighing and walking to him. Obito, are you alright? He looked up at her in surprise, before looking behind and glared. Damn it. I bet it was Naruto who did that. Rin furrowed her brows in confusion before following his angry gaze, and laughed. His ankles were tied together in a wire, making it near impossible to get out in less than a minute. She wiped a tear from her eye. How did she manage to do that? Obito tried to cut it with a kunai, Rin also helping. I bet she used a clone while she distracted us with the counting. Cheater. He glared at the floor with a pout, and Rin felt a little warm, fuzzy feeling in her chest. It can't be, right? Naruto was still laughing as she ran, equal to Kakashi, who was rolling his eyes. I can't believe Obito didn't notice. The girl grinned. It's 'cause I'm just that awesome. She blinked when Kakashi was gaining speed quickly. Oh no you don't. They were eventually pushing each other off, shoulder to shoulder, heads grinding as sparks flew and collided from their glares. They flew up the stairs, the movements of their feet pounding the floor were almost a blur. First, they both shout as they spread their arms wide, slapping each other in the cheek. They both panted heavily, as they glared at each other. And broke into a fit of laughter. Naruto clutched her stomach as she wiped a tear. Why are we laughing? She choked out, continuing to giggle. Kakashi's eyes crinkled upwards. Beats me. The joyful sounds eventually died down, as they lied on their backs, watching clouds, reminding Naruto about a certain pineapple-headed Nara. I totally see why Shikamaru digs this. Cloud watching. It's relaxing. Kakashi grunted in agreement. It was quiet after that, waiting for the other two to arrive. Naruto twitched. They're not coming, are they? It's been about 5 minutes already, and Kakashi sighed as he got up. Yeah, he said simply, lending a hand. Naruto moaned and lazily took it, letting him pull her up. Kakashi rolled his eyes, before patting his pants. Naruto yawned, before she nearly tripped back with a yelp, startling Kakashi. He quickly reached for her arm, before her weight made him lose balance. They both groaned in pain as Naruto tried to get up but found that she couldn't. She opened her eyes, only to see Kakashi's wide ones stare back. Who trips over their own foot? Kakashi gave her a pointed look when they returned to a normal size. She pouted, shut up. She felt her face getting warm, and knew that Kakashi saw it. Kakashi tried to get off her, but froze when a loud voice announced their teammate's appearance. Naruto. I'm going to whoops. Kakashi and Naruto turned slowly to see Rin and Obito blushing. Naruto wanted to groan at the situation. Why did they have to come now? Obito chuckled nervously. Hi. He glanced back before looking at Rin, exchanging nods. Yeah, we'll go and leave you two in peace to do whatever it is you're planning to do. They scurried off before Naruto and Kakashi could even have a chance explain. Once Kakashi soaks in everything, he jumps off as if burnt. Naruto lets out a breath of relief, and gets up herself. She was beet red, and was sure that the silver-haired boy also blushed under his mask. She pinched the bridge of her nose. We should go before Obito tells Dad. Kakashi turned unbelievably pale. They managed to find Obito at the streets before it was too late, and told him what really happened. Rin and Obito sighed in relief, before laughing outright, much to the misunderstood victim's displeasure. Rin tried to compose herself, biting the inside of her cheek. Now that I think about it, you two are always in a weird predicament. It's as if you're being matched up by God himself. She gushed. All you need is the red string of fate to pull you together. Naruto face-palmed, as Kakashi sighed. Obito rolled his eyes. You read too much romance novels, Rin. She slapped his shoulder playfully. I do not. Besides, there isn't such a thing as too much when it comes down to romance. She giggled. Naruto quietly whispered to Kakashi, I'm so glad I'm normal. He nodded. She blinked. Hey, this is kind of off topic, but are you also judging in the Junin exams? He shrugged. She sighed. There was a long pause between the two. If it wasn't for their teammates, chattering in the busy streets, it would have been silent. Naruto grew sick of staying quiet. When are you planning to spend your 3 wishes, and get it over with? Kakashi smirked. When I find a good use for it. I should have given you a time limit or something. His smirk turned triumphant, although no one could really see it. Too bad. Ass. Loser. Naruto rolled her eyes. So original. She smirked. Not. So you've been called that before. Figures. Naruto glared. Prick. So original. He mimicked, and Naruto knew he was sporting a smirk. Not. Obito and Rin watched the exchange, before shooting each other knowing looks and crept away from the two. Naruto pulled at her hair. You're so. She stomps away in aggravation as Kakashi shook his head in amusement and followed. The 2 weeks flew past in a breeze, and the Chunins of Konoha can be found at a training ground, along with other Junins and the Hokage at 9 in the morning. They stood lined up in rows on a grassy clearing, surrounded by trees as they listened to Sarutobi speak. There are 16 contestants, and would be paired to fight each other. We'll stop the match once it's clear that one is the winner, and judge you based on your skills. Once we're done to one person, everyone is free to return home, and we will continue the day after tomorrow. Naruto grinned as they were told to sit back and leave space for the fighters. She looked around, before noticing that she only knew Rin and Obito. She recognized some of the others from the streets, but hasn't talked to them before. The blonde looked at the supervising Junins, and didn't find Kakashi or Minato. She turned her gaze back to the matches, before Obito was called up. Uchiha Obito and Nakayoshi Akira. Obito knit his eyebrows down in determination as he watched his opponent step up along with him. He had dark brown hair tied up to a high ponytail that reached to his waist, and black eyes. He wore a gray yukata-styled shirt, the obi was black, and white pants, along with the standard blue ninja sandals. Akira tilted his head down, and Obito nodded back. Start. The two jumped back, waiting for the other to attack first. When it was obvious that Akira wasn't going to start, Obito dashed forwards, body crouched, as he brought a kunai in front of him. Nakayoshi braced himself, getting ready as he got out a kunai of his own. Clang! Obito pushed his kunai away, and quickly kicked Akira's chest, sending the boy back before he gained footage. Akira got up, this time going for the offending position, and they exchanged a fury of blows. Naruto widened her eyes when she saw a red tint in Obito's irises, but noticed that there were no tomos. Still, it was close. Rin saw it too, and sent a smile to the blonde, who returned it. The end of Obito's lips tipped up, it was getting easier, and he could almost see the next moves Akira would make. That meant he was almost getting it. The long-haired brunette blinked at the incomplete Sharingan, before focusing on the match again. The Uchiha's stamina was larger than his, and he was already starting to get tired. He had no choice but to resort to ninjutsu. Futon. Daitapa. A large blast of wind flew from Akira's mouth, aiming straight at Obito. This is bad. He looked around, before remembering, Doden, Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu. Akira blinked when Obito was nowhere to be seen. Right or left? He whipped his head to his sides, checking for any movements. Nothing caught his eye, so he looked up, and again, nothing. That left. A hand shot out of the ground and grabbed hold of his left foot before Nakayoshi could jump away, and dragged him down. Gah! Obito grinned in victory as he stood above Akira, who was buried from neck to toe in the dirt. Uchiha Obito wins this match. He helped the other boy out of the hole, and shook hands. Akira smiled. You sure got better, huh, Obito? Yup. Naruto blinked before turning to Rin. Who's he? The brunette thought for a moment. He was one of our classmates in the academy. I think they were friends before. Naruto hummed, before directing her attention to the other spars. Terada Rin and Uchiha Masaki. Masaki pouted. I wanted to go against Namikaze. I guess I would have to wait. I hope you have improved, Rin. She smirked as she slightly raised her chin. Naruto had to suppress the urge to go up and beat the crap out of her. Rin smirked back. Oh, I've improved alright. Naruto helped me, after all. That slightly made Masaki's arrogant attitude falter, before she huffed. Start. Rin ran first, and aimed a punch to her face. The Uchiha dodged and aimed a kick as she bent back. Rin caught her foot, so Masaki twisted her body to aim the heel of her free foot to the side of the medic nin's face. Rin tilted her head back to avoid the hit, and they both jumped back. Rin surprised Masaki with her speed, as she brought her fist up to punch her face again. Masaki, after getting out of her stupor, lifted her arms to protect it in a hurry. Big mistake. Masaki was thrown a few meters across the field, and was sure the bones of her lower arms were fractured. Rin straightened her back as she waited for the other to get up. One of the judges walked up to check on Masaki before calling in the medics to bring the stretcher. Winner. Terada Rin. The match didn't even last 5 minutes, causing whispers to erupt from the other Chunins and some Junins. They recognized that style, and Naruto heard Tsunade's name. She whooped and congratulated the winner, who smiled. Naruto was left for the last match, causing many conversations to pipe up. Everyone waited in anticipation, and wondered who she was up against. Namikaze Naruto and Uchiha Yusuke. Naruto looked at her opponent, who had spiky black hair, a little longer than Obito's. His eyes were black, and he wore the standard black Konoha nin uniform along with blue sandals. His forehead protector was tied to where it was supposed to protect, keeping his hair out of his eyes. He looked slightly nervous, but kept a determined face. They shook hands, before Naruto smiled, "Let's do our best." Everyone went quiet, as the two waited for the other to go first. Yusuke ran up, and sent punches, as Naruto dodged. They exchanged hits and blows, dodging and countering each other's attacks. Naruto made a sheep hand seal before thinking the jutsu out loud. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 5 clones puffed to existence, before they surrounded the Uchiha. He got out a kunai, and sliced at them, avoiding their hits and blows. He managed to cut them, as they popped away. He looked back to see Naruto smirk, and was about to run to her, only to hear another pop and the sound of paper crinkling behind him. He felt a tingling sensation spreading from where the paper was, going all the way to the ends of his limbs. He tried to look back, but found that he couldn't move. "Hey, Proctor, I think the match is over." Obito spoke up, when he noticed the seal on Yusuke's back. It was the one Naruto worked on the past week, just finishing the day before yesterday. She had explained that it was based on the Nara clan's Kajimane Jutsu. It doesn't make the target move like the creator of the technique, but it freezes them, once the seal is placed on a part of their body. The seal takes the creator's chakra, and once placed on the target, it releases, the chakra seeping into the skin and muscles. It wears off after a few minutes, depending on how much chakra you make the seal absorb, after the victim's own chakra washes it out. Another way to stop it is for the sealer to take his or her chakra back from the seal. Naruto had also explained that if she used the furballs chakra and altered the seal slightly, she could burst the target's chakra coils, effectively stopping him or her from ever using chakra again. Rin added more medical details, most of them he couldn't get, saying that the victim could die from losing all of his or her chakra. Naruto is someone you would never want to face as an enemy. Alright, winner is Namikaze Naruto. There was a round of applause as Naruto's clone sheepishly removed the seal, letting the boy move again. They shook hands, as Naruto gave a sincere, apologetic smile, "Sorry about that." "No hard feelings." Yusuke chuckled before shaking his head. The people who lost went back to where the proctors are, as the people left over were nervously waiting to be called up. Naruto blinked, and remembered that she could practice Sage Mode as she sat down to wait. She frowned slightly, wondering if she should. She shook her head after a minute of thinking, deciding that she would want to use it against someone she was sure she'll have a tough time against. The element of surprise is her specialty, after all. She grinned to herself, as her former sensei's voice rang in her head. "Konoha's #1 unpredictable, knuckle-headed ninja." She blinked when she felt the many stares sent her way, but shook it off. For the third match, she was called out, along with someone she didn't expect to be paired up to. Namikaze Naruto against Uchiha Obito. Said Chunins blinked as they looked at each other, before walking up. Naruto grinned at her teammate, who returned it. She raised her fist to him, "You better give me a good fight." Obito's face was set in determination, much like Naruto's own, as he bumped his fist to hers. "Of course. Don't make a big deal out of it and cry when I win. Kakashi would kill me." The blonde rolled her eyes, and ignored the last part. "I won't. I'll be the one beating your butt to the ground." She quickly changed her words when she felt Rin's gaze. "I don't go back on my word, TT Ibeo." She smirked. One of the judges spoke out once the two were ready, Hajime. Obito kept his distance, knowing that Naruto was best at close-range combat. He wasn't good with long-range combat, though. He was good when it was an enemy. He had many fire techniques, but this was a comrade and his teammate, as well as one of his best friends. He couldn't go overkill on her. Plus, Kakashi would maim him. And not to forget Minato. Then again, Naruto would surely win against him anyways. She even beat Kakashi, and had maybe a Junin to Kage chakra levels. And he wasn't exaggerating. She had been practicing all sorts of chakra exercises every day since she got here last month, never giving up. It was worrying, to say the least. He was sure everyone was amazed at the amount of chakra she had, the ones that could sense chakra levels well. Her stamina was definitely not something to laugh at either. With all that, and tons of experience, even Obito knew he wouldn't last. But he can't go down without a fight. He blinked when the blonde was gone, replaced by a orange flash. Oh, damn it. Are you serious? He exclaimed when he dodged a fury of attacks, surrounded by orange, and he was sure that she had used her shadow clones. Gah! He got out a kunai, before slicing and popping the solid duplicates, until he was the only one left. His eye twitched. She just loved being the epitome of surprise, doesn't she? He was sure she would appear again in her flashy, dramatic way. Again. Obito and the audience looked up at the sound of some boasting, and were blinded by the glare of the sun. Obito could make out a shadow, thanks to his goggles, before jumping back. Dynamic entry. Naruto shot down to where he had just been, forming a slightly large crater. The eyes of everyone except her teammates bugged out. Rin slapped her forehead as Obito did the same. The blonde maniac scratched her head. I was sure that would have worked. Whoa. She bent back, avoiding Obito's kick to her face. Exchanging blows, Obito landed a few hits to Naruto's stomach, much to his satisfaction. They used mostly taijutsu, before Naruto grew sick of it and was sure he was weary enough. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 5 clones appeared, and surrounded Obito, much like the previous times she used them for. One of the clones kicked Obito, sending him across to another clone, nah. The clone sent him to another, mi. Obito coughed as he was again kicked by the third Naruto, this time being sent upwards. Ka. All 3 clones jumped up, before kicking him high in the air again as they shouted in unison, Z. The original blonde used her chakra to push off the ground as she jumped, slamming her leg into the boy's gut. Naruto Renden. The Uchiha was forced down, but was cushioned from his fall by Naruto's clones. He thanked them, before nodding to the proctor, who got the message. Winner. Namikaze Naruto. The clones disappeared once he got off of them, and Obito lost balance. Naruto caught him before he reached the grass though, pulling him up. Awesome, Obito. That was great. She flashed him a grin. Obito let go, and high-fived her, mouth stretched into a similar smile. Hey, although I didn't win, I don't feel so bad. He winced, as he felt a bruise form on his hip. Except for that, Naruto laughed sheepishly, sorry. As they walked to their assigned rows, Naruto tried to ignore the stares sent her way as she silently sat down. She sighed when she heard the barely whispered conversations. As expected of the Yellow Flash's sister. I bet she's still holding back. She smiled back at Rin's sympathetic one, before nodding to her, good luck. The proctor looked back at his paper, before calling out, Terada Rin and Akamichi Chojiro. Her small, shy smile turned into a full-blown, confident grin. Thanks. Great match, by the way. She replied, before going up against her opponent. Hajime. Chojiro was pleasantly plump, Naruto thought to herself, remembering Choji's reaction to being called fat. Chojiro had red-brown hair, which spiked around his head and was kept out of his eyes by his Hittite. He wore a red-colored, half-sleeved jacket over his pale green shirt, which had the Akamichi clan symbol on the front. He wore black shorts, and the standard blue ninja sandals. His eyes were slightly crinkled up as his eyebrows were slanted down in a serious manner. Nikuden Sensha. He shouted out loud as he grew a lot in size, and was puffed up into a ball. With amazing speed, he rolled towards Rin. Oh no you don't. She smashed her gloved fist to the ground, forming a huge crater, making the round boy fall into it, unable to stop. Taking this chance, Rin dashed to him, pumping chakra to her muscles. She kicked him as hard as she could, the chakra exploding out of her foot. The Akamichi changed back to his normal state, knocking down to the ground painfully. When he propped himself with his elbows, he stared wide-eyed at the petite girl. What are you staring at? He would have turned around to see the speaker behind him, if not for the kunai aimed to his throat. Winner of this match is Terada Rin. Said girl put her kunai back to her pouch, much to Chojiru's relief, as she lent a hand. He shook his head and got up on his own, not wanting to take the girl down with his weight. He smiled gratefully. Thanks. Was that genjutsu? She blinked, before realizing that he meant the stunt earlier. Yeah, I made you think I was still there, when in reality I was running behind you. She rubbed the back of her neck guiltily, something she caught after being with Naruto for a while. Ah, but that was great. He grinned, it was my fault for not training enough. Rin was about to disagree out of modesty, but was cut off by the main proctor. Now is the second last part for this course of the exams. The remaining 4, please stand back, and the others, please go to the judging area. The 4 sat in a line, leaving a lot of space for the fights. Naruto looked around her to see the survivors. To her left was a Hyuga boy, probably the same age as her, who was dressed much like Neji did when he was 13. To her right were the 2 other contestants, one of them being Rin. The other, sitting right next to her, was an Uchiha, judging by the painfully obvious Uchiha crest on his back. Uchiha Kazuki against Namikaze Naruto. Oh, so his name was Kazuki. She blinked. Is he Yusuke's brother? They did look quite alike. The only difference is that Kazuki had brown hair, and his eye shape was slightly more sharper. He seemed to be cold, and was quiet, unlike Yusuke, who was slightly more open. Yusuke seemed like the shy type, while he was just distant. Are you Yusuke's brother? Naruto asked, curious. Yes, he's my little brother. Ah, she got into position, and waited for the proctor to call out. Hajime. Naruto started first, surprising Kazuki, and flashed behind him. He turned a little too late, and was kicked across the field, before jumping back up and was ready to fight. Kazuki's face was blank as he searched through the green, looking for any signs of sunny colors. He heard some rustling of cloth behind him, and ducked under the outstretched leg. He grabbed the ankle, and threw her to a nearby tree. Naruto yelped, but was able to attach her feet onto the bark, gracefully landing on the ground much to her relief. She frowned, feeling his eyes watch her every movement. Kage Bunshin. 10 clones appeared, before surrounding her, as she hurriedly got out a small scroll. The extra Narutos attacked Kazuki, effectively distracting him. Choju Giga. 2 medium-sized lions formed as it jumped out of the paper, and charged to the Uchiha, helping the clones. Naruto blinked when she saw the red eyes, both adorned with 1 tomo. Kazuki dispelled all of them, the 2 beasts splattering to ink on the ground. The Sharingan, EH. She smirked, slightly startling Kazuki. People usually pale at the sight of those eyes, but she was just amused. Hey. He smirked back, interesting. He punched and kicked, dodging the expected attempts of hits. Until she did a 180, and random attacks were sent his way. What? He was stunned. He couldn't anticipate her movements at all. Naruto used Lee's way of fighting, her speed being kicked up a notch as she naturally did what she felt like doing. She didn't think, just acted. Something she was good at. She sent him whirling to a tree, his back smashed into the wood, before he crumpled onto the grass. The proctors, again, amazed. Just what couldn't she do? Naruto grinned tiredly, as she helped the boy up before the medic nins took him, tending to some of his bruises. She didn't have much chakra left, but enough to probably make about 30 shadow clones maximum. That meant she had to finish her next fight quickly. Hyuga Kohei against Terada Rin. Kohei's clothes were different, but other than that, he was like a mini Neji. He wore a brown, long-sleeved shirt, along with black khaki pants, and black ninja sandals. His hair was tied at the end, and he wore his Hitai-8 on his forehead. Now that Naruto thought about it, many people wore the protectors like that in this timeline. She shook her head, remembering that she still had the final match. Sorry, Rin, Naruto thought as she sat still, closing her eyes. It looks like I'll have to miss your fight. Rin furrowed her brows worriedly as she recalled the gentle fist style, which uses the Byakugan to view the opponent's chakra pathway system and deal precise blows to disable and impede the flow of chakra. That meant taijutsu and close-range combat wasn't an option, which was bad for her. Oh well, she thought with a slight smirk, I have other ways. Hajime. Kohei ran straight for her, Byakugan ready. She jumped back a few meters, before channeling her chakra to her hands, before reaching down to the ground. Naruto grinned, as others watched in horror. The small girl grabbed a chunk of earth, almost half her size, and threw it straight to her opponent. His face blanched, before he dodged the large ball of dirt, missing it by mere centimeters. Kohei turned back to the girl, slipping back into his stance. He started running again, dodging the smaller boulders, before finally managing to get close enough. The nerves on his temple stood out, as he focused on the chakra points. Rin knew this was bad. Very bad. She felt the tingling sensation as he needled his chakra through her skin with his fingers, as she tried to dodge with the best of her ability. This wasn't going to be her match, and she won't be able to fight Naruto in the end. But that doesn't mean she'll let him go without a scratch. With new determination, she threw punches to his arms and face fast enough so that he couldn't dodge. Kohei coughed up blood as he doubled over, panting harshly. His arms were numb and wobbly from blocking his face from the girl's wrath. Rin was about to land a final punch, until she collapsed on her knees. She looked down at herself to see the red splotches covering her skin, and the match was already over. Medics rushed to their sides, hands glowing green. Everyone whispered excitedly as they heard the proctor speak. As the final round of this part of the exam, Namikaze Naruto would fight Hyuga Kohei. Naruto got up, an orange tint shadowing around her eyes, as she flexed her fingers, and tightened her forehead protector. She readjusted her long bangs, tucking them in. Kohei merely raised a brow at her new makeup style, but didn't question it. Luckily, he saved enough chakra, and he wasn't willing to lose. Fixed up, he stood and prepared himself for the match. He had one more trick up his sleeve. Hajime. Naruto dashed for it, as she raised her fists. Kohei managed to dodge, but was still blown by the hit, as he gingerly held his slightly swelling cheek. She missed, and yet I got hit. Naruto smirked, before aiming another punch to his face. His face flipped to the side from the impact, despite the absence of skin contact. The Hyuga glared, and jabbed his fingers to her tenketsu points. Naruto choked, as she tried to jump back from the sudden flurry of pokes and sparks. She growled, fighting a Hyuga as a pain. Neji was a major pain in the though. She stood back up slowly, ignoring his annoying, preposterous. As she regained her balance on her feet, she channeled the sage chakra, and mixed some of Kyuubi's chakra in. The red chakra flipped around her, twisting and turning around her as she dashed to the boy. Ha! She shouted as she punched him, and this time, Kohei crouched down, remembering that she didn't need skin contact to land a blow. Naruto smirked before ramming her leg into his gut, ignoring the way he choked and half flew, half stumbled across the grass. Kohei drowsily got up, trying to regain balance. Naruto didn't take her chances, as she tried to finish this off. She got out a seal from her pouch, one that was already prepared, as she whispered the name of the technique and ran to the Hyuga. Kohei braced himself, before noticing the slip of paper in her hands. He cursed, before trying to get some distance between them, despite knowing he was very weakened and slow from the last attack. Naruto catched him barely sticking the seal on him before he froze. It was the same seal used earlier on Yusuke, he realized. They all waited, and waited until the proctors were sure he wasn't able to move. They looked at her in disbelief, before one of them called the end of the match. Winner. Namikaze Naruto. Naruto had to force a smile on her face as she accepted and thanked the people who praised her and commented on her performance. She tried not to let it falter when they would say, as expected of the Minato-sama's sister. Or something along those lines. She was really not used to the praises, and squirmed at the attention. Funny. Her old childhood self would have loved it. She sighed as she placed her pouch on top of the shoe cupboard. Tadaima. Welcome back. Kushina's here, Naruto. Minato appeared along with an overly excited redhead. Naruto immediately grinned. I got top place in the sparring tournament. They beamed in pride, Kushina embracing her to a tight hug as Minato patted her on the back. Naruto forgot about her tiredness and soaked in the affection for all it's worth. Kushina stayed for dinner. Her and Naruto cooked as Minato tidied up the house. The redhead grinned widely the whole time, feeling like a mother cooking with her daughter. Naruto looked a lot like she did, too. It was nagging her at the back of her mind. Makoto had told her the same thing, saying that they looked so similar, that it was unbelievable. Kushina Onichan. The woman blinked, before looking down at the blonde. She shook her head, smiling. Naruto frowned, but didn't question it, and smiled back. They continued with the meal, and served. Minato knew he was drooling. The yellow flash, and future fourth Hokage was drooling. But he couldn't help it. The sight of the brilliant, shiny chicken practically sparkled, and he could smell it all the way from the bedrooms, even with the doors closed. It smelled so good. Itadakimasu. The three chorused, before digging in their forks and knives into the meat. Minato drooled again at the sight of the juice dripping out of the chicken. He took a bite, and the taste exploded in his mouth. He continued to chow it down hungrily, as Naruto and Kushina watched in amusement. He shook his head. You two are miracle workers. Naruto blinked, before understanding. This was an interrogation test. Whoever's inside wants the information that was written on the sheet, and would do anything to have it. They could torture the contestants, mentally or physically, and it's up to their willpower whether they pass or not. This is the real test. She narrowed her gaze. The last one was basically a test on our physical strength, while this one is a test on the mental state. She looked around. Everyone is given a second chance. Her eyes shone with determination. I see. Many came back out, terrified and shaking, in different times. Some was out not even half the limit, while most had passed successfully. The people who still haven't gone yet were glancing at the door in nervousness, anxious and frightened at what could be happening inside. Screams could be heard, causing the Chunins to wince. Rin and Obito had already gone and passed, much to the Naruto's relief, and she noticed how the Uchiha was practically shining with glee. A whole lot more different from everyone else's pale expressions, but she'll ask him about it later. They, along with the others who had already been tested, were dismissed, leaving behind 7 contestants, including the blonde. Namikaze Naruto. Said girl ignored the eyes that followed her as she walked, wrapping her hand around the handle of the door. She ed in a breath, closing her eyes, and relaxing the constant thudding in her heart. She pushed the door open, and opened her eyes to see a dark room, with nothing but a table and a chair. In front of the metal desk was a tall and huge man, in a black suit and wearing a black bandana styled Hittite. He smirked, lips twisting as his eyes watched her every movement. Welcome. You do know what you're here for, don't you? She decided to amuse him, of course. I'm here to be promoted. He let out a dark, loud chuckle. Right. Well, you'll have to get through this first. I want information, and you seem to be a tough wall to break. His licked his lips. I look forward to it. Naruto suppressed the urge to shudder, being vaguely reminded of Ibiki, as she smirked back. I do too. She sat down on the chair, ignoring the way the table bit her with its coldness as she rested her arms. Soon, she was overcome with complete darkness. What? Naruto looked around, seeing nothing but black. Odd. She looked down at herself, only to blink in surprise. She wore a white shirt with a red swirl, along with black pants and blue sandals. But that wasn't what surprised her. She was in her most likely 7-year-old form. Naruto rolled her eyes. What's with her and the age-changing thing? She walked ahead, and was about to call out before she stopped dead in her tracks. The shiver that went up her spine traveled down her arms, the hair sticking up behind her neck. It's her. That monster. She should just dig up a hole and fall in. Preferably die in the process. Haha, I would like to shove her down myself. Naruto's blue eyes were wide with shock, and then grief. What the hell? If it wasn't for her, Sasuke-kun wouldn't have left. Naruto widened her eyes. Sakura-chan. I'm disappointed in you, Naruto. Kakashi-sensei. You were a pest. You constantly got in the way. Don't you ever give up on trying pulling everyone down. She heard his sneer in his words, I'll gladly take away your existence. Many would praise, be thankful to me. The village. They'll worship me a lot more than you could ever dream of. I'll be their savior and demon. Humorous, right? Stop. Stop. Why don't you just quit? Naruto opened her eyes, still clutching her ears. Quit everything. You'll never be able to gain peace to the world. Did you honestly believe that? Naruto stood her ground. I do. And it would work. She fell back on her knees, clutching the part of her jacket where the heart was. It pulsed, and sent a wave of excruciating pain through her body. Kakashi chuckled darkly. Don't be such a kid, Naruto. Sure, I tagged along and supported you since I cared. But now, it's getting old. Stop your delusions, it was already impossible to begin with. I'll make it possible. Thump. A bigger pang, causing the blonde to whimper out in agony, her emotional hurt adding onto the pain. Nagato's voice rang, then why haven't you found it yet? Where's the peace you promised? I surely don't see it. That's something you'll work out with by time. Don't make me laugh. You won't get a happy life if you chase onto that pathetic sliver of hope. It would betray you in the end. You'll be alone until the world would soon be corrupted. Even then you'd be forever alone, so why even try? Why even try? You don't want to go back to your lonely days, do you? You might as well make the most of life before it happens. Time is slipping out of your hands. Quit. The Nine-Tails voice boomed and echoed through. Yes, why don't you give in? You'll gain more bliss in your limited amount of pathetic life. You can start now. Naruto collapsed, curling into a ball as her body convulsed. Make it stop. An unfamiliar voice boomed. Tell me what was written on the paper, and I'll free you. I'll let you go. I will free you from your pain. Naruto paused as soon as those words were spoken. After steadying her breathing, she let out a weak chuckle. That's right. The paper. Ha! Almost got me there. She shook her head at her foolishness. She smirked. Don't. She got up to her feet shakily. Underestimate me. The black-clad man chuckled silently in amusement. This girl ain't half bad. Her willpower is good enough. Now to see how she'll break out of this. How do I get out? Naruto glared. This is why I hate my non-existent skill in genjutsu. She looked around for any signs, but all that met her was black. You want my help in this again, don't you? No, I'll try on my own. How? Idiot. He'll tell that it's your chakra. I'll try to find an escape myself. The beast rolled his demonic red eyes. Are you stupid? Oh wait, you are. Fine, if you want to do it on your own that badly, I'll tell you how to do it. For real? Yes, now shut up. Stop the flow of your chakra completely. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on there, Kurama. Naruto pinched the bridge of her nose. She did as he told her to, and if the beast didn't have claws he would have slapped his head. You take too long at this. Shut up. I'm just below average. Then tell me how you can use your former pink-haired teammate's technique. Never mind. I got it. See. True to her word, she managed to stop the flow, but not for long. Hurry up and tell me the next part. Apply an even stronger power to disrupt the chakra flow of the caster's chakra. In other words, make your chakra seem like an uncontrollable current. She did as he told her, and blinked. The scene changed back to the room she was previously in. Naruto turned to look up at her captor clapping, a satisfied smirk cast on his face. Good job, Namikaze. You have a week of rest and time to train for the final round of the exams. Be prepared. And with that, she was kicked out of the interrogation room. It wasn't so hard, Naruto concluded, although it did distract her. She knew that the proctor didn't know what the genjutsu showed her, so it was most likely a jutsu based on the target's fears. It was too realistic. That spooked her uncontrollably. She gave an encouraging smile to the next Chunin, wishing her good luck. The girl smiled back weakly, thanking her before the door shut behind her. Naruto continued to the exit, grinning at her team, as she high-fived Obito. Rolling her eyes along with Rin at the curt nod Kakashi sent her way. Minato smiled. Went well. She shrugged. Could have gone worse. Oh. Naruto turned to the Uchiha. What were you so happy about? Obito's mouth stretched, nearly splitting his face in half. I got my Sharingan. Rin whipped her head at him, eyes wide and, Naruto blinked. Was that terror? Kakashi gave a slight nod. That's good, Obito. Rin looked away as she rubbed her arm. Minato caught it. Rin. The girl stood up straight, forcing a smile. Isn't that great, sensei? He finally got it, after waiting all this time. Minato didn't look convinced, but let it slide. Yes, that is. Come on then, team. We still have a few hours before sunset, so we can squeeze some training in. After training, while the rest of the team had already gone home, Rin and Obito walked down the streets. Obito had his arms folded behind his back as they strolled, pretending to not notice Rin's constant worried gaze. What is it, Rin? You know what I'm going to talk about, Obito. Are you really sure about this? Obito's lips curled to a frown. Of course. I've been thinking about it ever since I made up my mind. Rin's hands tightened. Obito, what if Kakashi doesn't want it? He'll have to cover it most of the time, since he can't switch it on or off. It would hinder him. His frown turned slightly into a scowl, but it would be very useful in tough battles. He would have gotten it anyways if Naruto hadn't appeared. Rin stopped walking. Obito turned back to face her. They were now near the Uchiha district by the lake. It isn't Naruto's fault. I'm not saying that, he snapped, before stepping back when Rin flinched. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound, it's just Obito walked to the deck and sat down. Rin followed, but stayed standing. I think it's better if he got it. It might make him hate me for a while, and also the clan, but it would get better as time passes. Plus, it would be admirable from the villagers' point of view. An Uchiha giving his sacred possession to his best friend. It would give the clan a better reputation. The clan had agreed to it, albeit a little reluctantly. He sighed, as he watched the water reflect the setting sun. It would make things easier for Fugaku-sama and Naruto. I don't know what they agreed on or anything, but it seems like the clan is loosening up. The people are getting reassured, and aren't as pressured as they were before. They've been saying great things ever since. Rin stayed quiet as he continued, I don't mind if Kakashi hates me for this. I feel like I owe him, seeing him work so hard over that jutsu. It would be the perfect gift for passing Junin. Obito finally looked back, grinning at the girl. Her lips curved into a gentle smile. I see. I doubt he would hate you. He isn't like that anymore. She walked and sat down next to him. He'll probably blame himself, though. It would be good if you explained afterwards. Hey, Ren, yeah, do you still like Kaka? Obito blinked, turning his head to his right before smiling to himself, watching the sky darken to a beautiful purple. Rin closed her eyes, the ends of her lips lifting, as she rested her head on his shoulder. His eye bore into hers, the moonlight bouncing off his hair. They are bound to find out soon. Sakura already knows what I'm planning to do and she knows how I feel about her. I love her like a sister. She'll tell everyone about it, and explain it better than I ever can. Naruto smiled, her eyes crinkling up as she raised a thumbs up. You know how I feel about you too, right? I think of you like a second father. Thanks for being an awesome sensei. Kakashi sighed. He seemed to want to say something, but shook his head. He showed her his infamous eye smile before ruffling her hair one last time. Thank you for being an excellent student, Naruto. The dream shifted into a dark scenery, clouds gray and lighting struck. The blonde stopped running, looking up at the figure, her eyes set in determination. Sasuke. So you came, Naruto. His chuckle dark and sinister. You never go against your promises. His eyes void and empty. Then I trust that you'll keep the promise. This is the Sasuke I see before me. On your death. Naruto awoke with a jolt, breathing harshly, wide-eyed. She looked around to see that it was her room, the moon's light entering through the window as it draped over her bed. She ran a hand through her damp hair, before grimacing. She needed another shower. After doing just that, she decided to go for a walk, seeing as she was now awake, and didn't seem to be able to sleep any time soon. Slipping on her shoes and closing the door without a sound, she walked on, not really going at a certain destination. She was lost in her thoughts, and her clearer memories, that mostly were on Team 7. Her Team 7. She was now walking on the road near the lake after about 30 minutes. She looked at the deck, remembering the very memory that wouldn't leave. It was when they were 7, weren't they? Right after the Uchiha massacre. Without realizing it, she walked towards it, drawing her knees close to her as she sat, staring at the moon's reflection. She must have been there for at least an hour, before she succumbed to exhaustion. She fluttered her blue eyes open, only to see a puppy's face right in front of her own. Whoa! She fell off the bed with a loud thump. Wait, bed. Series of thoughts ran through her head as she looked around the gray walls, the dark wooden floor, and the navy blue sheeted bed she was in. She looked out the window to see that it was daytime, before she blinked. Wasn't she at the lake last night? So you've finally woken up. She turned to see something she didn't expect, or more correctly, someone. Kakashi. Said boy rolled his eyes. Yes, who else would I be? What were you doing so early in the morning anyways? In your nightclothes, no less. Naruto blushed. Before glaring, I was taking a walk. He raised a silver brow, and collapsed at the deck. He rolled his eyes again when she huffed, crossing her arms. You're lucky I decided to go out early for a run. You would have fallen into the lake. Naruto fidgeted, before finally looking directly into his eyes begrudgingly. Thanks. She then realized something. Wait, why didn't you just wake me up? At that, he glared. You wouldn't wake up. Did you try pushing me into the water? That could have woken me up. He growled. There would have been a possibility that you would drown. I'm a ninja. I don't drown. He snorted. Could have fooled me. Besides, if you did drown, and I would have had to go in to save you, and bring you home dripping wet. I didn't feel like going all the way back to your house, and I don't like you wetting up mine. Plus, Naruto was sure she saw the red tint on his cheeks. I would have had to undress you myself. I'm sure you understand. Naruto knew she herself was turning into an embarrassing shade of tomato. She merely nodded, gulping at the idea. Ow! The two of them turned to see the puppy from earlier rub its head as it got up from the floor. Naruto blinked, before sheepishly smiling. Sorry there. I didn't mean to hurt you. She picked it up, scratching the back of its brown ears. She turned to Kakashi with a questioning gaze. Is he a summon? This pug's sorta familiar. Pakun. The blonde blinked, before holding the small pug away from her, inspecting it. She grinned and brought it back to her chest. You're so cute when you're a baby. Pakun scowled. I'm not a baby. Kakashi coughed into his hand, earning the attention from the other occupants of the room. He raised a brow at his teammate. Since when were you so squealish? Her face scrunched up in disgust. I'm not squealish. She emphasized the word, fingers up in air quotes. I just didn't like cats that time ever since a certain mission. Pakun beamed. Cats are smelly, and their paws aren't as nice as mine. He raised one leg, showing off his pink stubs. See here. These are nice and soft. Kakashi rolled his eyes as he patted the dog. Naruto blinked, pressing his nice and soft paws lightly with her fingers. Hey, you're right. Pakun tried to hide his happiness, but his tail betrayed him as it wagged furiously. Finally, someone acknowledges them. They all jumped as the front door slammed open, before Kakashi groaned. Naruto was about to check it out, nearly getting hit on the face by the door. Naruto. A frantic Minato dashed into the room, before turning as pale as Orochimaru. He looked down in horror at his daughter, who was inside a boy's apartment. Inside Kakashi's apartment, alone except for the pug with the said owner. This was entirely unacceptable. He turned to glare at Kakashi, who shrank back at the intensity of it. What the hell is going on here, Kakashi? The boy brought his hands up defensively. Nothing, sensei. It isn't what you think it is. He stepped back as the furious blonde man stomped towards him. What do you think is going on in my head? Kakashi. Naruto glared, a little put off that she didn't know what they were talking about. What the heck, Dad? You nearly killed me with that darn thing. She pointed at the door, unknowingly saving Kakashi from his humiliation and doom. Oh, if his father would look at him now. Minato's eyes squinted down at the girl. And you, young lady. What is the meaning of this? Going out on your own when it's still dark out? And going to the house of the opposite gender? No, Dad, if you would freaking listen for a minute. No, Naruto, we're going home, and I expect you at the training grounds, Kakashi. Kakashi couldn't help but to silently wail in despair. Why was it always him? Obito was doing a horrible job hiding his entertainment at seeing disheveled Naruto's appearance. What happened to you? Rin was more concerned. Kakashi still brooding. There was a visible cloud hovering over his head as he shifted away from the blonde teacher, who was quietly but clearly satisfied. Naruto gritted her teeth. A certain father misunderstood, so he punished his daughter through unbelievable amount of training 5 hours in a row. Obito grinned. Well, you look like you've run a marathon all around the world, got attacked by ninjas on the way, and then trampled by a herd of buffaloes. He laughed loudly before realizing no one else was, slowly regaining self-control. He coughed, as Naruto stuck her tongue out. It sure feels like it. She threw a glare at her sensei, dad, brother, hero, who glared back. And Kakashi helped me by bringing me to his house. She was oblivious to the incredulous stares of her other teammates, or how Kakashi had begun to pale significantly. Minato scoffed. Naruto pulled at her hair. Besides, he was the one who brought me to his house. I didn't go there. She stomped, venting her frustration. Rin gasped. Obito gaped, as Kakashi blanched. They all, sans for Naruto and Kakashi, turned to see their silver-headed teammate, before turning to their sensei. Kakashi did too, before preparing to make a run for it. Minato was livid. 2 hours after Minato had started working Kakashi to the bone, or maybe even further, Naruto changed the subject. They turned to her as she spoke. What's the third part of the exams about? They told us to ask our Junin teachers, and I'm curious. The other 2 Chunins nodded in agreement. Minato sighed, now finally free from his anger. There would be a survival test again, like the Chunin exams. This time, however, you would stay for 10 days and find a scroll. There would be many traps surrounding the scroll, making it difficult for the competitors, of course. The survival test would be held at the Forest of Death, Training Ground 44. That sent a shiver up the 3 spines. Naruto hates that place. It doesn't help the fact that the forest was crawling with ugly, disgusting creatures. Rin shivered one more time. They all wondered if Hokages have a certain grudge against Chunins. Naruto had come to the Uchiha district, checking on how his end of the deal was going. She had been holding a wide grin as she watched the children of the clan interact with kids from the other clans or civilian families. She had seen the slight surprise as the parents had come to pick them up, but noticed it had been a pleasant one. The bond between the Uchiha and the village was slowly being repaired. I have a proposition that might benefit the both of us. The blonde raised a brow, prompting him to continue. I would make this clan have a better future, as you have suggested. In return, I would like for you to ensure this clan's safety. When he didn't continue, she repeated, for me to ensure this clan's safety. He had nodded once. How? To keep the secrets secret. I will change the Uchiha ways into a brighter, more pleasant clan. In return, you will prevent the fall of the clan, you will prevent the Uchiha massacre from ever happening, as well as any other assassination attempts on that matter. This way, I will do my part, and you do yours. She smirked. Very well. Naruto's smile was still gentle, watching a child protest when his parent told him it was time to go home. The boy pouted, before following his mother back out of the district, waving a cheerful goodbye to his new playmates nonetheless. So I believe that your trip had already been decided then. She turned to look up at the man, before looking back out of the glass, head resting on a palm lazily. Yes, I would be leaving with Jiraiya a little over a month after the exam's end. Naruto's eyes followed the bubbles a young girl blew, the 1st of July. Fugaku sighed, I believe you haven't told your teammates. Obito had never mentioned anything about you leaving for a while. Naruto laughed softly, he does tend to react a little over necessary. But no, I haven't. I plan on telling them once the exams are finally over. I don't want to distract them or anything. Kakashi and my FA brother, I might have to tell earlier. She shrugged, who knows, maybe Jiraiya's already told Ni-san. Itachi has been asking about you. The blonde's surprise was clearly expressed on her face, as she lifted her head up to see him. Itachi, what about me? He placed his arms on the table. Yes, he seems to respect you quite greatly. Naruto laughed. Respect me? I'm honored, but I can't really see why he feels that way, Fugaku-sama. She smiled. Besides, we haven't known each other until nearly half a month ago. Fugaku shook his head. Regardless of whatever you may think, it is true. He is a sharp one, that boy. I know even he can tell how deep your powers lie. There was barely a hint of a smile on his face, but she could tell it was there. The girl blushed slightly at the praise. I thank you for your compliments, but I doubt that's the reason. One of the clan head's eyebrows raised up. Believe what you want, but you will see once the time comes. He has the ability to see many things that even I can't when I was his age. Naruto merely nodded, not releasing a breath of resignation. Kakashi didn't even want to know what she had been doing in the training grounds. He eyed the thick branches hanging above his head warily, watching out for the random, gigantic holes on the ground. Imagine how much she'll have to pay for all this damage. The blonde had lain down on her back, arms and legs spread, as she panted harshly. Clothes torn and ripped, her headband left on the grass, equally tattered, and scratches littered her face. It seemed to disappear slowly, however. What on earth have you been doing? Naruto turned her head his direction, tearing her gaze from the sky, unsurprised. Training. That's what the grounds are for, aren't they? He rolled his eyes. I mean, what have you done to make yourself and the training ground like this? Nothing you need to concern yourself with. She cringed as she slowly got up, gathering her headband and some orange, ripped cloth. She looked down at herself, noticing her sleeves had been tearing out of its stitches, the Hitaiate's navy blue cloth also ripped in so many places. She'd need to buy more clothes. Well, she's close to 14, much like when she had to go buy new ones with Jiraiya. How funny. Kakashi frowned. How are you going to pay for all this? He gestured the destructed area by merely glancing around. Naruto paled. Darn, she had gone a little overboard. She hurriedly grabbed whatever evidence she left behind of her being there, and dragged Kakashi with her on her way out. He sighed, letting himself be pulled by the straps that held his new katana in place. Well, I was planning to train, but since you insisted on having lunch with me, who am I to resist? Naruto tried not to punch the living guts out of him, as Kakashi gave her the eye smile, now both eyes she had grown to hate and love. Although hate seemed to be stronger now. She grit her teeth. I haven't said anything about. He ignored her. ordering a shoyu ramen once they entered the stand. He turned to her, eyes still scrunched up. Aren't you going to order? She glared, before smiling sweetly at Tuki. I would like miso, and let him pay. Her smile turned sickly as she turned back to Kakashi. After all, gentlemen are there to please the ladies. Kakashi pinched the bridge of his nose. Fine, you win. Just never say that again. She grinned triumphantly. Hey, Uzu Namikaze's always wins. Her grin faltered at her slip up. Kakashi stiffened. Tuki didn't seem to notice, however, so their tense forms relaxed. Kakashi rolled his eyes. Who mistakes their own names? Naruto growled. Shut up. I was just around Kushina Nichan for too long. Besides, I'm hungry. People go mad when they are hungry. Kakashi merely laughed lightly. That had been merely an hour ago, so how can it turn out like this? Naruto paced with eyes wide, along with Minato and Rin, who have been sitting down quietly. Why would Obito? Rin tightened her grip on the flap of her skirt, biting her lip. He felt like he owed Kakashi, and wanted to do something about it. He thought it was for the best. Naruto clenched her fists, as that idiot trying to spit my words back to my face. Because I had given tears to convince him out of it. Rin looked up, but found that she couldn't hold Naruto's gaze, and brought her eyes back down. It seemed to have encouraged him. I sort of agree with him, it would help both the village and the clan. But she choked. I don't like it. Naruto growled, her eyes also beginning to sting. Why didn't he discuss this with him beforehand, then? She slammed a fist at the wall. Minato looked at her sternly. Naruto, I believe that you shouldn't be the one to say that. She flinched slightly, before bringing her eyes to meet his. That's different. Rin's wavering voice stopped her. Tell me, Naruto. Are you keeping something from us? I am not keeping something from you guys. I merely had planned to tell at a later date. A long pause stretched, until the door finally opened. You may see them now. Naruto clenched her fists, watching the bandaged eye of both boys. Rin sat beside Obito's bed, the side of the covered eye, so she took Kakashi's. She reached up to brush the hair away from his eyes, staying quiet. Minato watched this sullenly, and looked away. A minute later, he left the room, knowing that it was better to leave them alone for a while. Naruto didn't even notice her hand rising up, until her fingers ran through his silver hair. She smiled softly, remembering the slight awkward moment the first time she did this. She continued combing through his hair, lightly entangling the locks as she rested her head on her left arm, which was on the bed. It was odd, she noted, doing things she had never done with her teacher. She had never touched his hair, despite her curiosity at how it defied gravity. Even though she wanted to know, she never even thought about touching it. So why now? Was it because they were now the same age? Was it because they were more of best friends than they were in her future? Was it because he reminded her of Sasuke? She pushed that thought away as quickly as it had come. Kakashi is Kakashi. Nothing will change that. It still lingered in the back of her mind though. Was she really so desperate as to cling onto anything that had reminded her of her love? Was she really that despicable? Kakashi had already been awake halfway through, but stayed in the same position, liking the feeling of her hand through his hair. He sighed inwardly, knowing it was time to wake up. Slowly, he cracked an eye open. Naruto quickly withdrew her hand, sitting up straight. Kakashi. He groaned. Hey, Naruto. Where's Obito's over there, with Rin. He should be waking up by now, since you did. Naruto smiled a little sadly. How's the eye? Kakashi raised a heavy arm to touch the left side of his face. It's painful, but livable. It was quiet for a while after that, seeing as Naruto couldn't really think of what to say. She got his hand, tracing the faint lines and curves on his palm. Finally, she spoke. Are you mad? He looked slightly startled. What? Are you mad? At Obito, I mean. You know, for this. He looked up at the ceiling. No, I'm not. Naruto let out a small breath of relief. I'm glad for that. Kakashi's visible eye crinkled into a smile as he sat up to ruffle her hair. Naruto couldn't help but remember her sensei. Minato and a doctor came in to check on the two, the latter running green glowing hands over their eyes. He marked his checklist, before pushing up his glasses. You both are now free to go. I would advise you two to take extra care of the light for the week. Naruto rolled to her side again, for what seemed to be the billionth time, on the bed, trying to get to sleep. All this thinking was unnecessary. And yet she can't seem to put her mind off it. She wasn't stupid. She knew what she was getting into. But it was just so unbelievable. She and Kakashi was the most unlikely match. Their personalities usually clashed, although sometimes Kakashi did get along with her quite well. They were going to be in a student-teacher relationship. It wouldn't work out. She knew Kakashi would feel odd about it too, if he ever even considered it. Naruto had already noticed before that she might not ever get a person she would love as a man, and vice versa. She had one too many goals to complete, and she doubted anyone would want to get involved with her because of that. She was also most likely going to get hunted down by many enemies. At first, she had thought she would never grow to love anyone more than Sasuke. She doubted she would love anyone like she had loved Sasuke. It had sounded absurd in her ears. That was until she realized she was starting to forget. His voice, his face, and the warmth he used to have in his eyes, they were starting to leave her with only her feelings once it has all been squeezed out. Those feelings would soon turn hollow, and she will forget why she even loved him in the first place. Was love always this easy to forget? Regardless whether it's because of a jutsu or not, shouldn't it at least last longer than this? If she should estimate, it would only take her less than 6 months to forget who he was. She might remember what he meant to her, but definitely not his characteristics or anything of the kind. Maybe it was better to not love in the first place. If she hadn't known any better, she would have beaten herself up for thinking that. But then again, it's better to try than to not try at all. Love is like roses, she realized. Though beautiful, it can betray you with its thorns. Love has a breathtaking, happy ending waiting ahead, but the path to it is filled with thorny obstacles. You need the courage to pass it. You need to be prepared for whatever you might have to face, be it a rejection, or possibly even death. The ninja life is unpredictable. All in all, it can end in a horribly bitter ending. The alternative, however, would give you a happily ever after. Something that is seen as an impossible dream in the ninja world. But when it came to the child of prophecy, did it matter? She had overcome everything that was said to be out of her reach. She had gotten the acknowledgement of the village, even respect and devotion. She was close to getting the Hokage title, too. Her ambition for peace, she had received the chance to catch it. Impossibility seemed impossible when it came to Naruto. So why was she contemplating to give up on love of all things? Why does it have to be so damn complicated? Naruto frowned. Chunins against Junins. That wasn't fair for them. Looking around, Naruto noticed that there were now only 9 participants left. She blinked when she heard a voice behind her. It was a girl, who was eyeing the forest warily. May we work with others? One of the Junin proctors spoke. Yes, you may. You are also allowed to fight other Chunins if you are desperate enough. Waving to her teammates, Naruto went to her assigned gate. Looking up at the white square, Naruto read the number out loud. Number 1, EH. She grinned. 1's my favorite number. She looked ahead determinedly. She has to promote to Junin. She won't get another chance until 6 months later, and even then she'll be too busy to participate in the exams after. The gates creaked open, and she soon ran in. After about 10 minutes of jumping from tree branch to tree branch, she finally found a good place. Which happened to be the remains of what seemed to be a gigantic elephant. Luckily, there weren't any flesh or anything left, just a pile of bones, but the ribs were large and thick, hiding her quite well. But it was mostly flat ground around her, without much trees to obscure the bone cave. Many might seek a place to sleep, and come here. Naruto frowned, pondering on what to do, before deciding to stay and send out clones. They would look around and see the situation outside, while she would prepare the area's security. The farthest traps set around were all explosion tags, sending the enemy ninja flying if they happened to step on any. This was the weakest, seeing as there isn't much chance of someone stepping on them. But the dumber people would think this is a sign of overconfidence and would be caught slightly off guard for the next. The second was a barrier, which would protect and block anything and anyone from getting inside. This would also include explosions. The seal for this would be inside, but the barrier would only block anything from above the ground. Someone can get in if they dig their way. The final layer of security was a chakra sensor, which would also alert her when she is asleep, and could sense anyone even if they got underground. She hid the chakra sensing tags made by Naruto herself in the soil, so that the enemies wouldn't see it. She had coated it in lavender water, warning off insects so that they don't try to eat it, they would die from the chakra she put inside the paper. Naruto had developed a soft spot for bugs, although she couldn't remember for the life of her why. Now to wait for the bunchins to either pop or come back. The Naruto clones decided to split up, one of them going to the center of the forest, where many would most likely go through. After a long while, she heard the rustle of leaves from behind her. Instinctively getting out a kunai, she crouched, ready for an attack. She let her guard down slightly in surprise, when she realized just who it was. Kakashi. He sighs, so it really was you. Darn. The Naruto clone was stumped on what she should do. She hadn't expected to find or be found by a Junin so early, especially Kakashi. Naruto tried to hide her discomfort as she forced a laugh. Do you really like me that much? Kakashi stiffened, before relaxing fast enough so that she didn't notice. Of course not, idiot. So, you want the scroll, don't you? She frowned, much to his surprise, and rejected. Nah, I can't really fight you right now, he'll surely be able to land an attack on her, so it's pointless and a waste of chakra. Plus, she can't really pop away now either. Have you seen Obito and Rin yet? He rose a brow. No, I haven't. You're going to team up with them. Naruto shook her head. I want to try this on my own. Sorry, Kakashi, but can I go? You think I'll just let you? He scoffed, as Naruto had stepped back, taken by surprise. Well, hey, she ducked when he swung a kick at her. What the heck? Naruto dodged every attack, much to Kakashi's annoyance. Are you going easy on me? She scowled as he got out his katana. No, but I can't fight right now, much less you woe. She barely avoided the sharp blade, and jumped back. You're actually serious. He was, judging by how his eye was sharper than they normally were. Well, I do need to ask you something. The clone grimaced, knowing that her boss was going to be pissed. I guess I have no choice, then. Kakashi blinked when she disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Cage Bunshin. So that's why she wasn't attacking. But why would she? He growled, noticing the chakra signatures heading his way, before leaving the area. Back in the cave, Naruto growled as well, when the memories came to her. The other clones had safely returned and dismissed themselves, but that one clone had to see him. When the villagers found out about Obito and Kakashi, they were incredibly baffled. The Uchiha clan members were outraged, but Fugaku managed to mollify them, saying that it would raise their reputation. That made them slightly more grateful then, and Obito received many pats on the back for being courageous enough to do so. Naruto knew Kakashi was uncomfortable with the glances that were always sent his way when they walked down the streets. It probably reminded him of the time when the village had reacted horribly to his father's disgrace. She hadn't met up with him or talked as much as she would have before, and she knew he noticed. Naruto was grateful that he didn't confront her about it, but was also guilty. It wasn't his fault, it was just the unbelievable feelings she had developed for him. She sighed as she sat down, head in her hands. Never mind that, she had less than 10 days now. Well, she was quite confident, since her clothes didn't stand out as much as she would have in her orange jacket. She wore Kushina's old, white kimono-styled blouse and black shorts, with black, thigh-high boots. Kushina squealed at how cute she looked, but Naruto noticed her shock as well. Which wasn't good at all. She would need to buy or wear something else fast. She can't let Kushina find out, or any other people. Although it was best to change the future, it was also best to keep some things the same. Naruto let a slightly sad smile grace her lips at that. If she had thought more deeply, she probably would have missed the faint curse outside her bones cave. Frowning, she peered through the gaps of the ribs, before cursing as well. What the heck is he doing here? Naruto noticed the dog next to him, digging a hole. He was finding me. Darn, even now Pakun seems to be an expert at tracking. She sighed, before going out, knowing that they would dig themselves in anyways. What do you want, Kakashi? Aren't you guys supposed to hide from us? Naruto grimaced, noticing the width of the hole Pakun dug. She'll need to work hard in covering and returning it back to normal. She smirked. It's not like she would just stand there and watch them worm their way in. One good thing about this barrier is that, Fuden, Datapa. It blocks, but also lets attacks go from inside to out. In other words, she can lethally injure people without getting hurt herself. Only if they're above ground. Which means that she needs to stop Kakashi and Pakun. Fast. The large gust of wind didn't blow Kakashi away, but it did stop Pakun from his digging. The little pup was blown far, a few meters, but successfully landed on his paws. Watch it. These paws are delicate. Kakashi had sported an angry, visible tick to his temple. Pakun, forget about your paws. He gritted out through his teeth, tone clipped with barely restrained frustration. Naruto rolled her eyes at the two. You'll get used to it. Getting out a seal, she shouted, Fuinjutsu, Kei Suiro no Akari. As the name of the technique says, an angry, large water dragon had erupted from the paper. Wind had kept the shape of it, forming scale-like patterns in its beautiful tail. The pink shell formed ripples as the dragon went through it, and the beast continued flying its way down at the Junin. Kakashi barely managed to escape from the attack, jumping a good few meters away from where the large serpent had crashed. He widened his eyes as he saw the large crater it formed, the water seeping into the soil. Some of it had landed in the hole, mudding it up. He cursed, crouching as he got ready for the next attack. I don't really see the point in testing you, Naruto. He said lazily. She grinned. I really am just that great, aren't I? She boasted mischievously. So, what are you planning on doing now? I need to talk to you. Naruto's grin had faltered. Couldn't that wait? He glared. You still have 9 more days. You know what I want to ask. The blonde glared back. I don't know what you're talking about. She had to restrain herself from grimacing at how fake that had sounded. Kakashi sighed. Naruto, just tell me what I did wrong. I'll try to fix it. His voice sounded almost desperate. Almost. Naruto was taken aback by his words, stunned frozen. What? You're avoiding me. It was something I did, wasn't it? Or, is it because I look like someone? Kakashi's eyes seemed to almost be pleading, in Naruto's point of view. That's not it. Then what is? Naruto bit her lip, the answer at the tip of her tongue. Of course she can't say it. Stuffing it back down her throat, she smiled weakly. I assure you, it's not what you have done or anything. It's just me. There's a lot on my mind right now. She exhaled slowly. Look, can we just discuss this later? It's distracting me from the test. The boy frowned in displeasure, before dismissing the puppy. You owe me a better explanation than that, Naruto. He disappeared in a puff of smoke, much like how Pakun did. Naruto sighed, going back to her little camp. Checking her small bag once over, she decided to go hunt for food. She already had a few rice balls, but it wouldn't last for over 5 days. She sat down and began meditating. Obito frowned at the group. Team up. The tallest of the five, a boy that seemed to be a few years older than him, spoke. Yeah, we figured since you seem to be quite strong, and are close with the Namikaze. Also, Terada seems to be quite a fearsome opponent. His voice was confident, the other four slightly stepping up. Obito was slightly put off with the arrogance oozing out of his form. He smirked slightly. While I would like to work with you guys, the tall boy straightened, daring Obito to refuse. This is something I would like to try on my own. I'm sure my teammates will tell you the same thing, but you'll never know unless you try, will you? He rolled his eyes as the group stalked off, telling him that he's missing out. He shook his head, clearing his thoughts and replacing them with a plan for the night. Obito was confident in his abilities. The team had trained for endless hours, and they had probably improved by leaps and bounds. He was sure he could accomplish gaining a scroll from at least one of the Junins if he pushed to the limit. And, if he was desperate enough, he could try stealing a scroll from another Chunin. It was low, but ninjas do something similar without thought during normal missions. Anyways, back to the test. He had enough ration bars to last him about 6 days without starving. Obito wrinkled his nose in disgust. Those flavorless sticks were emergency food supplies. He would never eat them unless he had to. That would leave hunting the only option. He sighed, before adjusting the backpack straps on his shoulders. Keeping his hands fairly close to his weapon pouch, Obito headed further into the woods. Rin was so startled she nearly jumped out of her hiding spot when an explosion sounded far behind her. What was happening? She shook her head, focusing back on her prey. It seemed to be a turkey searching for worms and insects. Frowning in concentration and with a flick of her wrist, her senbon pierced the bird's throat. Checking to the right and left for any enemies or beasts, she shot down to check her hunt. It was dead, of course, and safe. Getting out a cloth, she spread it on the ground and placed the dead turkey in it. Enclosing the sheet and knotting it up, she hoisted it over her shoulder. I know you're there. What do you want? The hiding bunch of Chunins got out of hiding far up in the trees behind her, jumping down. Rin finally turned around to see them, glaring slightly. It isn't very nice to sneak up on someone. The leader brought his hands up defensively. Whoa, we ain't here to attack. He continued at the raise of her brow. We're here to ask if you would like to join us. She frowned. Why? We just thought it would be a good idea to work together. Rin nodded, showing she understood, but the frown stayed. I see, but there are some things we need to do alone. This is one of those things, I believe. I want to test my skills to the limits. The leader's brows knit together, and he bit his lip. That may be, but I don't think we all have a chance against a Junin. It all seems a little fishy. That is true, I also think that way, but it could all be a test on our individual powers, like the first round. I would try to get a scroll on my own, but if I can't, I'll try to work with someone else. I'm sure Obito and Naruto feels the same way, so I wouldn't bother asking them if I were you. They are really stubborn, Rin said with a small laugh. The team sighed, before giving up. Alright, we'll leave now. If you need anything. The brunette smiled. I'll ask, thank you. Naruto weaved through the forest, feeling the presence of the various animals in it. She felt Rin's chakra up ahead, along with 5 others. Heading towards them, she listened in on their conversation. I'm sure Obito and Naruto feels the same way, so I wouldn't bother asking them, if I were you. The blonde realized that the group must be getting members to gang up on the Junins. Understandable. The objectives are quite extreme. They are really stubborn. Naruto frowned. The group only had 5 people, and adding her team, it's 8. What happened to the 9th person? She furrowed her brows, trying to recall what she looked like. All she could remember was that she had purple hair, tied up. She sighed when she couldn't remember anything about the girl. But, Naruto thought with a frown, she was quite familiar. Well, it is possible to find her. but it would be a slight waste of time. Besides, her sage mode doesn't last too long, and she needed food. She turned away from the scene, hopping from tree branch to tree branch, scanning the woods below, sensing anything and everything she can. She grinned when she spotted a hare, preparing to strike. Getting out a kunai, she angled it to aim at the back of its head, ending its life as quickly and as painless as possible. The brown rabbit was down in an instant, and she gently wrapped it in her cloth. She unconsciously tucked her hair back in her ear before frowning at the small task. Her hair was getting quite long. It reached past her mid-back, close to her waist. She'll have to get a haircut soon. Sighing, she leapt to her bone cave, satisfied with her hair, but irked with her hair. Naruto yawned, waiting for the meat to cook under her hand. It was covered in her blue chakra, as the seal edged up. She smiled proudly at her work. The seal she had placed on the now furless hair was something she had thought up herself. With the help of Jiraiya, she had invented a stove that didn't make smoke. The user has to pump in a lot of chakra into the paper, and the seal would convert it into heat and cook up the food. It was quite a fairly simple, basic sealing type, but can be very dangerous. It can be a very scary, stealthy assassination technique. The target can be burned from inside out, and there would be no signs of smoke. She licked her lips once the meat was cooked, and sunk her teeth in. It was quite good, better than she had expected, but that could be because she was starving. Eating the rice she had prepared before the exams with it, she thought over the test. Now that she thought about it, it was highly likely that they were being watched. It seems as if this was a test on their performance and if they could handle tough, dangerous missions alone. The contestants who choose to do solos would be the Anbu type of person. They work on assassination missions, or as spies. And, if they were to team up, the leader of the group would be tested on their leadership skills. This would give them a chance to be Junin senseis. Well, this was all just a theory though. But it sounds like it was close to the objective of this round. Naruto wondered what type of Junin she was. Anbu. They weren't heartless, only the root Anbu were, and they weren't supposed to be around, but it didn't really ring a bell. They were supposed to be subtle, quiet. Naruto just wasn't like that. But a Junin sensei, she guessed it was a great idea. She loved to be around kids, and she worked well with them. But her leadership skills, she never had been a leader before, despite wanting to be one, and the village's leader nevertheless. Team leader had been mostly Shikamaru, Neji, Sasuke and Kakashi's job. Gaara was an amazing cage, and he also did a fantastic job in leading the war. Her Junin sensei Kakashi had said that she would have made a great village leader, but she wasn't so sure. Trust her when she says she isn't trying to be modest. Sure, the village had acknowledged and deeply respected her that time, but her moves were always brash. But then again, the Raikage was hot-tempered and equally brash, wasn't he? Naruto dismissed the clouds of doubt filling her head, remembering that she was getting off topic. She can't start missing her previous life now, can she? There's always a chance to get the village's love with her hard work. It's just another challenge to get through. And didn't she love challenges? Yawning yet another time, Naruto prepared to get ready for the night. Crickets chirped quietly, giving a nice peaceful and calm effect. But it wouldn't always stay that way. She whispered her favorite technique, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 2 clones puffed in existence, nodding and stepping out of the cave. Assured that her clones would serve as guards, she went to her sleeping bag. Her eyes fluttered close, and she succumbed to her exhaustion.